Now, dyslexia is a condition that tends to be misunderstood. For instance, a common assumption is that everyone with dyslexia sees letters reversed and writes backwards, when in fact, only about 10% of them do so.
Here to clear the air around dyslexia is Dr. William Wan, author of Clearly Different, a book to commemorate 25 years of the Dyslexia Association of Singapore. And to share their personal journey, our husband and wife duo, Gary Xiao and Carrie Chan. Welcome. Good morning to you all. Doctor, let's start with you. How would you describe the difference in the public's understanding of dyslexia over the past, say, 2 decades?
25 years ago, a lot of people didn't even know how to spell dyslexia, let alone know what it is. And it's been often misunderstood, and as a result, it's caused a lot of pain to people who had dyslexia. But today, thanks to the Dyslexia Association of Singapore, a lot of people know about it, and many of the dyslexic people have succeeded because of the special education program that they have benefited from. So today, a lot more people know about dyslexia.
Dr. William, what would you say are some of the common myths surrounding dyslexia?
Because dyslexic people think their brain function differently. It's nothing to do with lack of intelligence or anything like that. And as a result, they don't read as quickly as well, they don't spell as well. And sometimes because of the way they see things, the way they're wired, they don't speak as well, and people think that they're slow, people think that they are stupid, and that's not it at all.
About 10 years ago, Gary, your life changed because you were in your 40s, and that was when you were diagnosed with dyslexia. How did you feel when you were given that diagnosis?
Well, I feel much more released, being confirmed and being confirmed by DS. Over my conditions, so I have stopped arguing with my wife over certain minor issue.
Well, talking about arguing, Carrie, you said before that you were pretty frustrated for the both of you at certain times, but it finally made sense after Gary's diagnosis. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, he used to work in China and I was in Singapore, so how we maintained our relationship was to writing letters during those long distance
old-fashioned love letters.
Yes. So sometimes I get like spelling mistakes, or sometimes the sentences were just like incomplete. Yes. So there's a lot of, on my part, there's a lot of like guessing and a lot of anxiety.
Now, speaking of those letters, Gary, we can see some of them on the screen right now. Can you tell us about that? When you were writing those letters, did you find that it was difficult? Were you worried that you wouldn't be able to get your message across?
I have a lot of problems to express myself in writing. Yeah. Verbal communications is much easier for me because I have limited vocabularies, and I find that writing is a challenge for people like us with dyslexia.
But now, writing aside, you're also a business owner of an educational toy shop. Tell me more.
Yes, I asked my wife to, during that time is my girlfriend, to help me to plan my career. And the last push was I was accused of providing the wrong figures for my sales report. And from there on, I decided to set up my own business and engage my own people to do those that which I'm unable to do, such as accounts, sales figures, and anything got to do with numbers. I'm very weak.
Yeah, I think it's good to outsource and delegate when you can, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Now, Dr. Gary was diagnosed fairly late, in his 40s. How common is this, first of all? And secondly, would it have made a difference if he was diagnosed earlier?
I guess in the earlier days, there was less ability and less resources to diagnose early. With the founding of Dyslexia Association, I think children are diagnosed earlier, and I think it's a great advantage to them because, like Gary, when you're diagnosed late, you go through life as an adult, being misunderstood, being accused falsely, as you've heard him say, and that must be very painful. I think today, with all the expertise that's found in DAS, very thankfully, a lot of young people are given the opportunity to be diagnosed early. So early intervention is definitely very helpful to them.
Well, Carrie, despite Gary's limitations when it comes to language, you've said before that he has talents in other areas, and I've heard a lot about that wedding dress.
When we got married, so he designed my wedding dress.
You trusted him with your wedding dress?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I did. Yeah, so on the day of fitting, when I was at the studio, so together with the lady boss and the seamstress and him, we all thought that the dress looks nice.
Yeah.
But he went into a rage because he said the applique was not right, you know, it's 5 millimeters off.
5 millimeters.
Yes.
You could just spot that.
Yes, he spotted that, yeah. So I was worried, I was almost in tears because I thought I'll be thrown out and they're not going to refund me my deposit and I have no wedding dress.
So in the end, they took his advice,
They
right?
took his advice and they were very kind, so they make another dress.
Well, that's nice.
Completely new and to his standards, yes.
Exacting standards. Very high standards you have, Gary.
Yes.
So with the diagnosis for Gary, how did your life change, being his partner and finally understanding how he communicates?
It all makes sense now. So less of the anxiety and the confusion. So we have come up with our own methods to cope. Yes. So like giving an example, he has got difficulty with left and right. So when he's driving and I'm at the passenger seat, so instead of telling him to turn left or turn right, I'll say, you turn on your side or you turn on my side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, William, I want to know too, how do you think the public can best support people with dyslexia?
Well, for one thing, if you notice someone who is slow in reading or spelling, don't quickly assume that there's something wrong with that person. You may be looking at a very gifted person who can see things in multiple perspectives, who can visualize things a lot better than you. So maybe you should recommend some diagnosis early. I think second, of course, DAS is always in need of public support and funding. I think if there's a lot more donation, they can do a lot more. There are 20,000 young people today who are probably dyslexic, but DAS need to do a lot more. So I think we can help them do a lot more by supporting them.
And speaking of help, Gary, I know you want to help others with dyslexia. What are you doing on that front?
Well, I'm creating something called some toys and some learning aids which help the children which is dyslexic able to cope, knowing that dyslexic people see things jump, So I create some blocks, some numbers so that, it's easy for them to play with it and to learn through the play.
So, Doctor, the association, do they help people from as young as, say, toddlers? Could people be diagnosed with dyslexia as young as that
Well,
age?
I'm not an expert on that. I've just been writing the book and talking to people. That is a question I really don't know, how young they start. Do you know, Gary? How young did they start diagnosis?
In general, if I'm not wrong, I was told it's between 5 to 7.
Wow.
Well, there you go.
Very early.
So the earlier the better, because these young people go through periods of loss of self-confidence and self-esteem, and they behave in a very reactive way because they've been misunderstood, and I think it's not fair to them.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Gary and Carrie, and thank you, Doctor, for coming in as well. We've been speaking with Dr. William Wan, author of Clearly Different, and husband and wife duo Gary Xiao and Carrie Chan.